Hello everybody, here we are today and we are continuing on with our 2023 season recaps, today talking about the Calgary Stampeders. So before we start talking about the Stamps, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or the CFL, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So 2023 proved to be kind of a weird year for the Stampeders as the expectations were relatively high going into the season. 2022 they went 12-6, and then they were a team that with the start of the 2023 season, a lot of people actually felt like they could maybe be the second best team out west. I know it kind of seems laughable at the moment, considering how things kind of went, but you have to think too, the situation with BC losing Nathan Rourke was considered huge, and the Stampeders had a lot of close losses in 2022 where people said if they turn those into wins, we could be looking at a very good Calgary side. However, things never really materialized. They got off to a very slow start in the year, and it just kind of kept, getting pushed farther and farther back. First, they were 1-3, then they were 2-5, then they were 3-8, and people started to say, is this a team that is running out of time to make the playoffs? This was a very big deal, mind you, too, because of the fact that the Stampeders have been in the playoffs every single season since 2005. This is a side that they just make the playoffs. That's what they do. That's who they are. They are a regularly good to great team in, the past 20 years. And they win Grey Cups. It is a team that's been a thorn in people's side. You knew at times that you were going to have to go through McMahon and win the Grey Cup. However, this year they looked very, very vulnerable, which was kind of surprising because of the fact that, again, in 2022, they looked like a side that maybe could be one of the better teams in the league. I think ultimately a big thing that really held back this side was the fact that they had games where maybe one side of the ball did really well, but the other one didn't. You would have games where the offense would go off for about 30 points, and they'd still lose. Or you would have a game where the defense would really lock in, and then they would maybe, allow like 20 or less points, but the offense couldn't score. And it would be against bad teams. That was, I think, the thing that was kind of frustrating too, was Calgary could not take advantage of some of those bad teams or teams that were around them. And the talk really started to become, what's going to happen here? Are we going to miss the playoffs for the first time since 2004? And for a while there, it really did look like it was a lock. And then Saskatchewan ended up losing like 7 games in a row. I believe the Stamps ended up picking up a big win over the Riders late in the year. And they were able to make the playoffs, but it just really was not a thing where you thought, oh, this is going to be a team that maybe they rally and they can go on a run, because the Lions handled business relatively easily in BC. And the season ended 6-12, and you could say, well, we kept the playoff streak alive. But there wasn't a lot of reason to be optimistic other than the fact that the streak was alive. So after all the smoke and dust settled from the 2023 season, what are some things we'd like to see change for the Stamps? I think getting Jake Maier to be more consistent. This was an individual that had the highest throw percentage for his team in the CFL, if I'm not mistaken, and was a player that would, again, have some really good games, but then he'd have some games where you're like, this is just atrociously bad. I think he had a really bad game against Winnipeg. Maybe it was BC. Either way, I think he had 2 bad games against them, 1 apiece respectively. 1 game against BC, I don't think it went particularly well. And I think this year, especially, there were some teams like Edmonton that gave them a little bit more of a run for their money than expected. Now, besides him, I think it comes down to some other things too. Defensively, they allowed some big plays. It was not great. The offensive line is going to have to improve with the run game. But two, another thing that's kind of a minor thing that is actually relatively easy to fix, special teams was not a great thing for them this year, specifically looking at the return defense. When you have a situation where you lead the league in most punt return touchdowns against in a year, that's going to be a problem. And it was just 4, but it was one of those deals where one of those I know came with the game against the Argos. There was a game where the offense, if I remember right, was able to score a lot of points, but ultimately a late Javon Lake touchdown ended up leading to the Argos winning that game. Stuff like that is just relatively easy to fix. Just not allowing big returns on those situations, and certainly not allowing touchdowns, is going to be big to getting yourself in a better situation where you can win games. Is Calgary going to be a team that takes a step forward and wins more games this year? I think it remains to be seen, and I think there's some things to be excited about, but at the same time too, is this a team that I would say they're going to be a 13-5 side? I don't really think I'm going to go there right now, and there's a lot of questions surrounding Maier about whether or not he's going to be the long-term starter. And then with Coach Dickinson, whether or not he will be the coach after this year. I think in general there's just a lot of talk that seems to be more negative than in recent years with Calgary. And I know I talked about it in last year's season preview, but this is a team that hasn't won a playoff game since 2018. Not a Calgary side you feel familiar with when you grew up watching them be really good. But anyway, what are your thoughts for the Calgary Stampeders season in 2023? Do you think there's more reason to be optimistic in 2024? Let me know all that stuff down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe and have a great night.